Mmusi Maimane, it's the most expensive Zoom session, I think, in the history of Zoom sessions in South Africa. That's an awful amount of money to press connect and make sure your camera is on.
Good morning, and good morning to fellow South Africans. I really believe that we have lost the respect of citizens. We've treated South Africans as though we cannot understand what financial integrity is. And I think because of this broader story that says there are good people and there are bad people, both good politicians and bad politicians, in this instance, there's a corruption scandal in the Ministry of Health. And I think it would be absolutely appropriate for the Minister of Health to be able to be placed on suspension. This is not a pronouncement of guilt. This is about saying we want to run a proper investigation so that we don't end up with another state capture commission a number of years later and retrospectively trying to prosecute people. I think it's time for the president to be proactive. And I think in this instance, even Mr. Mkhize himself needs to be required to do the honorable thing in this regard.
Mr. Maimane, let me ask you what we're asking viewers this morning. You can weigh in on this. We're asking the question, should this investigation be concluded as quickly as possible? Now, at the surface of that question, it sounds like a strange question. Here's where it's coming from. There is an overwhelming majority of people, including yourself, suggesting the minister should be suspended at least while the investigation's ongoing. Others, and there does seem to be a minority of this, to be fair, saying if he were to be suspended, this would derail the vaccine rollout and he needs to be treated differently so we don't go backwards in COVID-19. What's your response?
Firstly, I think that the constitutional framework of our country gives extraordinary powers to provinces. So we've got MECs of health all across the country who are responsible for the deployment of COVID vaccines. And this is not something that we should hold as a sacred grail. The fact of the matter is that the vaccine rollout has in and of itself been delayed. So this is not something that we need to look at and think there's something extraordinary happening here. We need to allow provinces to be able to roll those out. And furthermore, there's been a combination between the public and the private sector to roll out vaccines. So again, I think that we cannot be held hostage by the fact that we look at Dr. Mkhize and naturally presume that he's the only one who can do the job. That would be incorrect. And in fact, he is incapable of doing a job currently because he's distracted by an investigation. We can complete this investigation quite quickly. It's a forensic audit, in my humble opinion. It's not, you don't need many witnesses. It is about the SIU being able to do its job, considering the fact that if what the minister is saying is absolutely accurate, this investigation didn't start last week or 2 weeks ago. It started, he called for it earlier on. So by this time, given the context of it, it's merely forensics. I think it can be concluded by the end of this month, and we'll know for certainty whether the minister had any doing with the contract or not. And that way, he can have the freedom to do his job, or otherwise, the longer you delay it, the more you perpetuate this overall climate in South Africa where people feel there are political motives in what should be a straightforward forensic investigation.
Let me put this to you. I'm sure you would have seen the article that I'm referring to where the claim was that the health minister is saying that the president is targeting potential presidential candidates. Mr. Maimane, for a man who's been through the rings of local politics, party politics, national politics, provincial politics, does that claim hold any water in your opinion?
Yeah, certainly one of the worst things that has happened to this country is that the ANC has captured the state. This is not Jacob Zuma's project. This is the ANC's project. And when you have state capture, it means even the people who are Director General, even the people who are deployed to the state are actually party loyalists. They're faithful to the party. And so naturally, any investigation that takes place has the face of the party. That is why, for me, it is extraordinarily bizarre that we have a minister who says he must appear before the ANC's Integrity Commission. On what basis? This is not the ANC's contract that was issued. This is the state contract. The sooner we learn the power of being able to build a capable bureaucracy, have leaders who are elected directly from communities and are accountable to citizens, then and only then can we sit back and say we set aside all political interference into this matter. In a straightforward manner, it ought to be the SIU doing its job and ultimately the minister to account to Parliament. He should have been there last week. He should go and present himself this week because that's where the people are represented. And so for me, the sooner we reform the Electoral Act to make sure people are directly elected by the people, accountable by the people, Mr. Mkhize would not be able to walk around and simply say he's waiting for the ANC or he's going to appear before the ANC. This is not the ANC's money. This is not the ANC's vaccines program. It's the South Africa's money and the South Africans' vaccine program that must be handled here.
Final question to you, Mr. Maimane. In the Pretoria News this morning, reporting on that very issue of the Integrity Commission. It's the Integrity Commission chairperson, it's George Mashamba, if I'm not mistaken, saying, and I quote, the minister, and I want to make it very clear how I read this, I'm quoting, the minister will have to inform the IC of a suitable date on which he will appear to answer allegations of corruption, going on to say that they have to find out when the minister will be available to appear before the commission. You can see where I'm going with this, can't you?
And I really think that is a genuine abortion of justice when ANC people have to feel like the ultimate body is the Integrity Committee. Who elected the Integrity Committee? What role do they have in the state? What power do they have to run forensic audits? It is a complete facade. At the end of the day, we have to build a capable state that is able to execute these investigations without fear of prejudice or political interference. The longer we keep the state and the party the same, then we will never as a country be able to rid ourselves of corruption unless we rid ourselves of the ANC, which for many, such as myself, recognize that that's the only way we can go forward. That we have to be able to allow the organs of state to operate independently.
Mr. Maimane, forgive me for jumping in. Sorry, forgive me, Mr. Maimane. I do take your point. I think what I was trying to get to, just as a final brief answer, I'd love your thoughts on this. What I was looking at in that particular quote was, it's almost an option, it seems, for when the Health Minister decides to appear before the Integrity Commission, as opposed to the IC, which you're saying has no teeth, demanding that a current public official appear at a time that they deem suitable. It's almost a case of waiting for the Health Minister to clear his diary, I think is where I was going with that. Final brief answer from you, if you could.
Mr. Mkhize should actually go to Parliament. Parliament must schedule a date for him to come and appear, and he must answer questions appropriately. Let's set aside the Integrity Commission. It's not up to him. In this instance, the people of South Africa demand answers, and he must show up in Parliament.
And as always, I appreciate your time in speaking to us this morning from the One South Africa movement. Mmusi Maimane weighing in on Zweli Mkhize.